Mary Stuart became the Queen of Scots when she was just 6 days old. Her entire life was a whirlwind of power, passion, and betrayal, starting from the very moment she was born. Many people say her life was cursed from the start. Imagine being a queen before you could even speak your first word with a kingdom already in turmoil. Her father, King James V of Scotland, died shortly after her birth, and some say his last words were a prophecy about the Stuart dynasty, hinting at a tragic end that began with a woman and would end with one. This set the stage for a life filled with constant danger and political games. Powerful men in Scotland wanted to control the infant queen and her kingdom, making her a pawn in their plans. To keep her safe from the English king, Henry VIII, who wanted to marry her to his son, Mary was sent to France at the tender age of 5. This was part of a deal to secure an alliance between Scotland and France. She grew up in the luxurious and sophisticated French court, far from the rough and tumble world of Scottish politics. She was beautiful, intelligent, and charming, and everyone at court adored her. Mary's education was exceptional for a woman of her time. She learned to speak several languages, including French, Latin, Spanish, and Italian. She was skilled in music, poetry, and needlework. She was betrothed to the French heir, Francis, and they were married when she was just 15. For a brief, shining moment, it seemed like her life would be a fairy tale. When the French king died, her husband became King Francis II, and Mary became the Queen of France as well as Scotland. She was on top of the world, holding 2 crowns. But this happiness was tragically short-lived. Her young husband, who was always frail, died after just a year on the throne, leaving Mary a widow at only 18. Her powerful mother-in-law, Catherine de' Medici, then took control in France, and Mary's position became uncertain. The French court was no longer the safe and welcoming home it once was. With no place left for her in France, Mary made the fateful decision to return to Scotland. She was going back to a country she barely knew, a land divided by religion and ruled by ambitious nobles. Scotland was in the middle of the Protestant Reformation, a time of great religious upheaval. Mary was a devout Catholic, which immediately put her at odds with many of her powerful subjects, who were now Protestants. She arrived to a cold, gray country, so different from the vibrant France she had left behind. Her return was not welcomed by everyone, especially not by the influential Protestant preacher, John Knox. Knox saw Mary as a threat to the new Protestant faith in Scotland. He preached fiery sermons against her, calling her a dangerous woman and challenging her right to rule. Despite the opposition, Mary tried to be a good queen. She promised religious tolerance, allowing her subjects to practice their own faith as long as she could practice hers privately. For a while, she managed to navigate the tricky political landscape. She was a charismatic ruler, and her charm won over many of the Scottish people, who were fascinated by their beautiful French-bred queen. But a queen needed a husband to secure the succession. The question of who Mary would marry was a major political issue, not just for Scotland but for England too. Mary had a strong claim to the English throne through her grandmother, who was Henry VIII's sister. This made her a direct threat to her cousin, Queen Elizabeth I of England. Elizabeth was wary of Mary and her ambitions. She closely watched Mary's marriage negotiations, trying to prevent her from making a powerful alliance that could challenge her own rule. After considering many European princes, Mary made a surprising and disastrous choice. She fell in love with her handsome cousin, Lord Darnley, a man with his own claim to the English throne. They married in 1565. At first, it seemed like a love match, but the reality soon became a nightmare. Darnley was arrogant, ambitious, and consumed by jealousy. He demanded to be made a king with equal power to Mary, something she refused to grant. Their relationship quickly fell apart, turning from passion to hatred. Darnley grew suspicious of Mary's close relationship with her private secretary, an Italian musician named David Rizzio. He became convinced they were having an affair and that Rizzio was the real power behind the throne. In a horrifying act of brutality, Darnley conspired with a group of Protestant nobles. They dragged Rizzio from a dinner with the heavily pregnant queen and viciously murdered him right before her eyes. Mary was terrified and heartbroken, but she was also a queen. She cleverly played for time, pretending to reconcile with Darnley, while secretly plotting her escape and her revenge. She eventually gave birth to a son, James, who would one day become king. The birth of an heir was crucial. but it did little to mend the broken trust between Mary and her husband. Not long after, the house where Darnley was staying exploded in the middle of the night. He was found dead in the garden, seemingly strangled, not killed by the blast. The mystery of who killed Darnley has puzzled historians for centuries. Suspicion immediately fell upon the Earl of Bothwell, a powerful and daring nobleman. But even more shockingly, many people believed Queen Mary herself was involved in the plot to murder her own husband. The scandal was immense. Instead of bringing the suspected murderer to justice, Mary's actions only made things worse. Just 3 months after Darnley's death, Mary married Bothwell. Whether she was forced into it or did so willingly is still debated, but for her people, it was the final straw. It looked like she had married her husband's killer. The Scottish nobles, who had long resented Bothwell's influence, rose up in rebellion against their queen. They saw her marriage as an unforgivable sin and an insult to the kingdom. Mary's forces met the rebels at a place called Carberry Hill, but her army deserted her, and she was forced to surrender. Her reign as Queen of Scots was effectively over. The nobles imprisoned her in a castle on an island in the middle of Loch Leven. While there, she was forced to abdicate her throne in favor of her infant son, James. But Mary's story was far from over. She was a fighter. After nearly a year in captivity, she made a daring and dramatic escape from the castle, with the help of a few loyal supporters. She quickly raised a small army, hoping to win back her throne. But her forces were defeated in a final, decisive battle. With nowhere else to turn in Scotland, she made another fateful decision. Mary fled south, seeking refuge and help from her cousin, Queen Elizabeth I of England. She believed Elizabeth would help her regain her Scottish crown. It was a terrible miscalculation. Elizabeth saw Mary not as a cousin in need, but as a dangerous rival with a claim to her own throne. Instead of helping her, Elizabeth placed Mary under house arrest. For the next 19 years, Mary was a prisoner in England. She was moved from castle to castle, always under guard, living in a gilded cage. During her long imprisonment, Mary became the focus of numerous Catholic plots to overthrow Elizabeth and place Mary on the English throne. She insisted she was innocent of these plots, but Elizabeth's spies watched her every move. Scientific analysis of her letters has shown how she used complex codes to communicate with her supporters, but these same letters would eventually be her undoing. Elizabeth's spymaster, Sir Francis Walsingham, intercepted her secret correspondence. He cleverly laid a trap, allowing a plot to go forward until he had proof, in Mary's own handwriting, that she had consented to Elizabeth's assassination. With this evidence, Mary was put on trial for treason. It was a historic moment, a queen being tried by a court. She defended herself eloquently, but the verdict was never in doubt. She was found guilty and sentenced to death. Elizabeth hesitated for a long time, reluctant to sign the death warrant for another anointed queen. It was a dangerous precedent to set. But under pressure from her advisors, who feared for her life and the stability of England, Elizabeth finally signed the warrant. Mary, Queen of Scots, was to be executed. On a cold February morning in 1587, Mary walked to her execution with incredible dignity and courage. Dressed in symbolic red, the color of Catholic martyrdom, she faced her end without fear. Her tragic life came to a final, brutal end. But in a strange twist of fate, her legacy lived on. When Queen Elizabeth I died without an heir, Mary's son James inherited the English throne. So, in the end, Mary's dream came true through her child. The son she had been forced to abandon became King James I of England and Vi of Scotland, uniting the two crowns she had fought for. The story of Mary, Queen of Scots, is a powerful tale of a woman who was a queen from birth, but never truly in control of her own destiny. Her life was a constant struggle for survival in a world of political intrigue and betrayal. Thank you for watching. To explore more incredible stories from the past, please subscribe to our channel, Historical Repo.